Hi everyone, this is Willie and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity, the CEO special edition. I can't believe that I'm having the guest today with you all. Our guest today is Artesha Moore, President and CEO at Association Forum in Chicago, and she is such a big name in the association sector. And I'm having goosebumps thinking about this interview for the past few months. Welcome to the channel, Artesha.
Well, thank you. I'm actually the one with goosebumps right now. From the time I met you, I just wanted to be all up in your energy. So thank you for having me today.
I appreciate it. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners one more time?
Absolutely. I'm Artesha Moore. I am the president and CEO of Association Forum, but that's what I do. Who I am as a human, I've been in association management and serving people probably for the last 30 years. And really, that's the through line of my life. I come from a huge family. I grew up in the military, and everything about my life has been about supporting families, supporting kind of loud voices to change the future, but also deeply rooted in service. And I actually stumbled into association management by mistake. In some aspect, I just need to pay my rent. But was a God calling for me because it gave me the opportunity to kind of advance a lot of technology and wild thinking with this kind of through line of people and service. So I'm here today as a Sagittarius that is in a new rebirth and awakening of who I am and what we do as an industry.
Thank you so much. You say you get into association management by mistake, and that is interesting when you also combine it with a God calling.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate that for me?
Absolutely. I think the God calling piece is something, and as we talk today, we'll get more into that. That piece around understanding that it was always destined that I would be in something. So I went to school originally to be a scientist. I went to school to be a chemist, and I loved mathematics and I loved science and that thinking. And I thought it was either or. Either I was going to be with people or I was going to be with numbers, right? But this piece around science and process thinking and experimentation actually was preparing me to be an association executive. That's what I mean about that God calling, right? I stumbled into it because I needed a job and I knew how to build databases. So I was a secretary. Old school people out there, shout out. I was a secretary, okay? And so I was a receptionist and a secretary, and I knew how to write SQL code. I taught myself with a dummies book. Shout out to dummies books. Starts a lot of careers back in the day. And so I remember being able to understand and translate it. And I built a database, an interface, and these things for an adoption agency that was a nonprofit. And I wanted to not be a receptionist anymore. So I applied for a lot of jobs in the federal government. I'm from DC, but I applied for a job at the American Psychological Society at the time. It's now the Association for Psychological Science. And that organization was very rebel at the time, and they hired for talent, not looking for a degree, not looking for various things. And I came in and I had a strong interview for an administrative assistant, and I left with an offer as a membership manager. And boom, associations. That was a small staff association, and I'm in a small staff association now. And I say shout out to those groups. Big associations are great too. But the small staffs gave me an opportunity to be smart and curious and capable that led me to the seat here.
That's really cool. Shout out to the Small Staff Association. Thank you for walking me through some of those defining moments. If you're looking at your entire journey, what is the one thing that you like the most about that journey?
The accidental transformations that I received by experience. And I mean accidental because I thought I was just doing a job and that I was going to gain skills, air quotes. But really, what I was doing was unlocking and transforming as a person each time. And this industry is very unique in our niche that it is this relationship building on steroids. We do it with our members, we do it with each other as peers, but we build relationship connections that last lifetimes. I know so many association folks that met their love of their life spouse working together at an association. One is a researcher, somebody else is in marketing, but yet here they are. So I think that that is the thing that I would look back to say. And a shout out to every leader who gave me an opportunity to do something that I didn't have no business doing it. And they let me do it. And then they said, now go fill in the backfill of whatever the education you need, figure it out. So it transformed me as a person. And I sit here today, probably at the precipice of the biggest change that I've ever made, becoming very exposed in this role that I'm at right now.
Now, when you say no business of doing,
Yeah, I didn't have no business.
did I hear, so go back to that point for me. Did I hear some imposter syndrome?
Oh yeah, I still probably have that. The one and only ASAE Ignite session that I ever was a part of, shout out to Stephanie Reeves, was about battling my imposter syndrome. I think it is probably shocking, and for those that are listening and know me personally, they will say, yeah, she does. I probably have a huge imposter complex. It's huge, even now. And so people are like, oh, you're so confident in it. Oh, that's a facade. It's really manicured. I fight it daily, but I also lean into authentically saying it's there. I think we spend a lot of energy in our life, especially when we're younger, trying to fight against it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not there and I'm confident and I'm this. Nobody is actually confident. Nobody is. Not in that way. And I really like that energy of not a syndrome, but a feeling. Even I'm a performer sometimes. And even when I have to get on the stage and perform, I have performance anxiety. It's sweaty. I think that they're all going to laugh. Nobody's going to get it. I've been doing this for 30 years, right? So I think that it is there and that no business, even as the CEO, I told the board, are y'all sure? Right? Like me, because I wasn't trying to build a name. I just wanted to serve, but I have a wild way of doing that. I'm a technologist, I'm a future strategist, right? And the board at Association Forum wanted to go on the ride.
This is so cool. So I just want to synthesize this. Imposter syndrome is something that we talk a lot on this channel. And I find that different guests coming to join me has different approach to it. So what I'm hearing from your story is you start with the awareness piece. So you call it out, acknowledge it. But what awesome is that you also accept
Yeah.
that you have imposter syndrome. I think the acceptance is an important piece because as soon as you can accept it, I'm hearing that you can start managing it with some technique and tactics. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you. And I wrote in my notes because I think with writing, so for shout out for anybody who actually writes on paper. Yeah. So it's an old school thing now. It's old school. And so that acceptance really resonated with me deeply. Worked a lot to get to that point. I will shout out to my healers. I invest in healers. I have a spiritual kind of Buddhist healer. I have several executive coaches. I have a therapist that I've had for 12 years. As I started to move up the ladder in my career and be more exposed, it was the imposter feeling and ego mind was loud. And that loudness actually shook my core. And I needed to find why that did that, what that meant, and being deeply open to, I guess, raw discovery, you get to acceptance, but it's ugly. It doesn't feel good even now when I have to accept that my ego is trying to drive something that I shouldn't be doing, or somebody that I'm trying to be that I'm not. So I think that acceptance is something that I work on. I studied Eastern religion and practice when I was in college. And since last year, I've been deepening my study in Buddhism. And so really trying to understand what acceptance is as I move forward on the Eightfold Path, I think for me has really helped me be a better leader.
I think come with all of the Buddhism philosophy around this idea of acceptance, a lot of that also go back to self-compassion, which is also a big piece. I'm hearing you, that process really raw and really tricky to do it ourselves. So thank you for painting the pictures for us in this conversation so far. Now I want us to go back to this point in time a year ago. So just for our listener, Artesha and I go way back.
Mm.
So about this same time last year, I met Artesha at the Dell reunion in Detroit. Artesha gave a killer session, and there was something that she said that stick with me. Now in that session, you say something about being comfortable with being in the wood.
Mm.
The reason why it stick with me is, and I'm not being in the CEO or ED positions before, but my vision is as the top of an organization, as the decision maker of an organization, I imagine that there will be that pressure that you have to know everything so that you can make decisions. Now, that is my speculations because I've never been there.
Well,
So my questions around that is, how are you able to say that in front of the whole room? Can you talk me through?
yeah, let's say this. Here's the thing. Everybody that knows me also knows that in being a scientist mindset, everything is about experimentation. I don't know nothing. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I don't know what that is, piece either. I think the other part too, we were bullish in our knowing 15 years ago. And then the industry, times, efforts, everything punched us in the face. We don't know what we don't know. And holding on to what we know and knowing it and making the decision limits our capacity to go beyond everything that we've ever done. It actually holds us in a sticky kind of boundary of doing the old. I said at an event a few weeks ago, and I say it all the time, my team are Avengers. I get to work with superheroes, literally. Maybe I'm a little bit of Samuel L. Jackson and Nick Fury. I don't know. Maybe that's me. But if I know everything, we failed, period. But also, I like to say the thing to people and give leaders the space to be vulnerable and human too, because we weren't taught that. We were brought up in a time where we had to be ultra hyper confident, know everything, have the answer in 5 minutes, get it out there in the market and make billions. That didn't last and it don't work. So for me, I think the other beautiful part of being in the middle of my leadership journey right now and still honored to have people in their 70s and 80s that are working and pour into me and doing innovative things, but also people in their 30s that inspire me. I'm in the middle. I get to be able to say the thing and make people feel comfortable. And if it resonates, I hope it does, but it really is for the next generation. Don't go forward with hyper confidence that keeps us locked into old thinking.
So I'm hearing that it's okay to admit that we don't know things.
Oh, I say it all the time, but I can learn.
Of course. Yeah.
That's it. And shout out to my old boss. I'm going to name drop just one, Janice LaChance, because I have in my notebooks of every job that I've had for the last 15 years, I have quotes. And one of her famous quotes is, I don't know, but I can learn. So I think I can learn. I don't want to know all the answers because then that makes it so that it's lonely. And I don't want that. And I actually tell my teams, which is shocking to a lot of people, I'm probably only right maybe 60% of the time. And that made me an industry thought leader. So there you go.
The other thing you also say that resonate a lot with me is, well, inspirational for me is holding on to what we know. We hold our capacity in a box.
Yeah.
And now that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This is pure gold. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's hard. Let me just say this real quick. I started my career as admin as a secretary, and I used a dictaphone. And so for those folks in the audience that don't know what that is, it's a tape recorder that my CEO would tape and say, Artesha, type this memo of da 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 da. And then every morning she would leave on my desk a tape. And I would put the tape into the tape machine, and it had pedals that I could go faster, slower, and I would just type memos all day. If I kept to that thinking, the dictaphone functionality actually is dictation in Word. Where would I be if I couldn't evolve my thing, right? If I couldn't be wrong? The keystrokes that I learned that made me type 90 words a minute, they've actually replaced half of those keystrokes to mean something else because there's new functionality. So one of the things that my therapist keeps bumping into my head, still in therapy, Dr. Myrna, is that's old programming. Doesn't serve you now. So I'm okay to be wrong because there's a universe that lives within us, that there's infinite possibilities of answers. Mine wasn't the right one now, but it may come back again in another dimension. So
That is so cool. Thank you. Thank you. Let's move to the keyword discussions. So what word are we unpacking with our audience today?
boundary.
Nice.
Nice.
Now you say something in the lead to this discussion that you use boundary as your lens to retell your stories and journey.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate that for me?
Yeah, because I think at the beginning of my journey, the boundaries that I thought were in place were really not limiting, they were safety built. Don't expose too much. You don't know enough. Keep people away from the true identity because we lived in a politically correct world, right? I started working in the 90s and working in environments that were military. I also worked 2 jobs for a long time just to survive. And so being in food service, I am a Black woman in America. And so there were times that I didn't feel like I could be my true identity. I had to be safe. So those boundaries had function. The thing is that as I got access, there were different things that I needed. So those safety boundaries then become, well, now I need to build up boundaries for people who have access to me, people who have da-da-da-da-da, in the middle part of my career while I was still kind of percolating who I was. Because I didn't have boundaries, different energies seeped in. And that actually led me to therapy. Because the energies that seeped in, when that protection part I didn't need anymore, but I wasn't equipped to build my own boundaries, put my own boundaries in place. What happened was the toxicity made me question my soul work, made me question me as a person. That imposter that flares up anytime you do something new and challenging became debilitating. I wasn't doing anything. I'm getting accolades and I'm doing this thing, but my life was crumbling. So a good friend recommended that the therapist that I have today. And I started going to therapy. And I remember my therapist looks with me over her glasses and she says, well, you're going to have to create some boundaries. This is 3 years in. And I said to her, well, I don't want to upset the cart. And she said, here's the thing. It's your job to create boundaries for yourself. That's your job. And ain't nobody gonna like it. Nobody ever said, thank you so much for creating a boundary, Artesha. We love that so much. You're great. So I worked on that for many, many years. I felt like I had built it up. Then I get my first CEO job. I feel like I'm serving my industry. These are my peers. I know a lot of people. I've done a lot of things or whatever the case is. And then boom, I hit that next boundary that was internally built. You can only go so far in your career. You can only be so authentic. And so this is only as far as you can go. And that's when I met my executive coach. And we talked a lot about my inner critic creating internal limits and boundaries to keep me bound to what I had built and not where I could go. So I'm on this journey right now of becoming unbound, actually. And that's why I think the keyword resonated with me, because at different gates, I needed protection, right? In some aspect, then I needed to figure out how to build things that made sense for me. And now I'm leaving all of those things beyond to go into space, the final frontier.
This is mind-boggling. All right, first of all, as soon as I'm hearing the word boundaries, I start visualizing the physical boundaries that we put to protect ourselves, which I'm hearing that you start with that, with the safety built to protect yourself. And then we move to a more complicated boundary to protect us mentally, to give us space to be ourselves, and to functions within the organization.
Mhm.
And then it's got to the point towards the end when I'm hearing that now you have all of these boundaries, you've been protecting them enough. Am I hearing it correctly that you just now let it all go?
Yeah, because the energy to keep the fortress up was actually draining my creativity.
Is there a story behind this that you can share?
Yeah, I will say, because when I built so many tools and things, the boundaries are, I need this in order to fuel my thinking. I need this in order to do this part, right? I've got a voice around. This is how you interact with me or not. Then I take a position where I have to be naked in front of the world in a bathtub all the time. I have to be available. I have so many stakeholders. I have so many things that the boundaries that I had put in place around either protection or the limits. This is how a female leader in the United States does something. It actually kept me from thinking, what are the infinite possibilities? What does that look like? Why can't I walk outside and barefoot and whatever, right? Why can't I make a relationship for my industry that has nothing to do with our traditional funders? Why not? What are we talking about? Right. So I think for me, it does come to a level of comfort, age, doing a job a long time in an industry or whatever. But I also think you don't need any of those things and you still can if you figure out that alignment that it matters to you. And that's where I'm so excited about where professionals are now, because the boundaries that I was given and learned in the 80s and the 90s do not exist in the same way today. Right. So now I just say, you don't have to step out into space with me, but figure out your voice and try things quicker than us. And then let us, as the old guard, help make sure that they don't box you in. Right. Because I'm excited about where folks can go. So it has been transformative. And a lot of that acceleration started when I moved to Chicago, that end part, right? That now I'm unbound and just out here like a superhero and doing whatever.
You are a superhero. So, am I hearing a defining moment here between your time within the protective boundaries until the time that you start to?
Yeah, yeah. I hit the biggest failure to date because I just told you I only hit it like 60% of the time, right? So that's a 40% is a lot. But this one was a failure of ego. And that actual failure of ego was the defining moment, because ego is actually nothing. And that's what I had to get to. When I was in elementary and in middle school, I was a math lead. And for those that don't know what that is an athlete that does math problems, right? Like you go into the cafeteria and you go do it and you get that piece. So I love that so much. I love thinking. I love thinking about thinking. I love learning about people who think. I love thinking about stuff that thinks, right? And so my mind is something that I'm proud of. I think about stuff and wild, crazy stuff that makes no sense. My thoughts and the ideas and the ability to come up with a solution, especially for our industry after the pandemic, was ridiculous. None of that stuff was going to work. But here I am as a CEO, and I know how to make multi-million-dollar projects happen. Boom, lickety split. This is an industry I know. This is what we need to do. That failed miserably. The first 18 months I've been in this job was the most miserable time of my whole life. And it was so rewarding and beautiful. Rewarding and beautiful. Miserable because I was shedding of the old, closing of the ego, getting out of the boundaries that I had put in my own self, getting out of the stuff. Every part of what happened and is happening had to happen, was destined to happen for me to born into this new unbound. So it was transformative. It is, because it's ongoing, rewarding in new ways. But I will say that I came into this year feeling settled in the new earth, settled in the new way, settled in this new kind of unbound.
I will let that sinking in. This is so inspirational. This is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to wrap this up with the mantra.
Mhm.
What is your mantra as a CEO?
My mantra in life is be the change. And it really is adapted from Gandhi's famous quote of be the change you wish to see in the world. I believe in living out loud and being a life experiment to show people that flaws are us in a beautiful way. We are all a kaleidoscope of different things. So be the change. If you want something to be a way, be it. Don't expect others to do that. I don't expect anyone, and I hope as people continue to interact with me, I am the most approachable by nature because I will approach you. I'm drawn to anybody's energy. So when people are like, oh my God, I saw you on the, no, you didn't, because I'm here with you right now, right? Like I want to talk to you. I want to be in your energy field. Be the change. When I cry, I'm emotional. My staff surprised me this past holiday season with a gift of all of my Tisha-isms. And they made a calendar. And so the title of it is I'm coming in hot today, because when I'm angry, I say it. When I feel a way, but I also will say things in meetings that shock people at first, like, I don't know the answer to that, or wait, I totally forgot. Wait, what are we talking about? And they will be like, I have never heard a CEO say that they forgot anything. Oh, honey, they forgot 18 things. Be the change you want to see in the world. The more of us that can be what we want others to be and really be it, the better we all become as humanity, period. So that's what I live by every day. And I want people to know that they can be anything and we can change the world. So
I do want to unpack this a little bit. Change is scary.
yeah, it is.
Dealing with change is difficult. And now you want to be the change.
Yeah.
What motivated you to show up with that mantra?
You know what? Here's the piece. I grew up in the military, and my dad, an Army veteran, every 3 years we moved somewhere else. So my therapist told me the uniqueness of the way that I switch from one thing to the next is not normal for everyone. So my husband, poor Will Moore, I love you. Poor Will has to deal with it because he's very steady, right? My day, I could be on 18 different planes in a different way and not think anything of it. But the change that I'm talking about is that raw, vulnerable, emotional part. Because all of us have our unique superpower gifts. That's why I love our smarts and our leaderships of those things. And it is hard to change. That's why I volunteer. That's why I serve. That's why I give back, because I don't ever want to forget what members give, what they do. So do something. We've all changed and we change every day. When Chat GPT came, we were all logging on to do such and such. The next thing is going to happen. I was a MySpace girl from way back. I also all the way went up to TikTok. I mean, we change, we grow, we do things. So learn something, do something, and that mental dexterity will also help you live a long, fuller life with people want to be in it. So it's hard, but do it.
I'm loving your courage and bravery. Thank you for saying that on this channel. Now, legacy. What legacy are you envision to sculpting out for your organization?
Well, that's hard. Legacy is about impact, and I'm a person of painful definitions. So I went to look it up too, because I was like, well, what is that? I don't think about the impact or legacy that I want, but I've been thinking about this a lot. A couple of things. I'm a business person, or at least I imagine myself to be. I like things to have structure that live and have not the thing, the rhythm of it, meaning the teams and the thinking and the infrastructure that will be able to sustain and dynamic to the future. It's not a thing that we're building, it's an industry lane, right? And we need to keep that going. So that means continuing to invest in superheroes and all of that. My biggest pride of anything is that at some point they didn't know that I was here at all. So the legacy becomes no legacy, right? Like I want it to be so that I was just this blip, and the spark and the fire that is going has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the infrastructure and the ways that they're doing things. So this is a hard one for me. The other part is I'm a very bold and out loud person that likes to live in the shadow. I just do. I like to be, as much as it's hard for people who are listening and seeing me and all of that to think, I don't really like to be out front. I just don't. So I think for me, that one is something that I'm still going to pray on. The legacy. I want to leave behind good work and honor my ancestors and honor the people who poured into me. And if the young people get something, not just young people, because there's 60-year-olds whose minds are so squishy and beautifully young and doing stuff. I want people who want to change the future, if they get something from me, to get what they need to do that. And if I do that, then I'm winning.
If you allow me to share my perspective on your take on the legacy, as you retelling your take on the legacy piece, visualizing these humongous dragons that is undefeated. And
Yeah.
here is Artesha Moore at the heart of that dragons, pumping blood and fire and fuel, so these dragons can just go out and conquer the world.
I love you, little face. And let me tell you why. Two things. One, I was born in the Chinese year of the dragon. I've got 3 dragon tattoos on my back too, so it just resonated with me what you said. But I love this idea of fantasy and reality and imagination and breathing fire into others. And then I loved Game of Thrones. So yes, all of the things, the mother of dragons. I'm out here and let's get it. So that made me happy.
There
That's
you go.
fantastic.
Artesha being the heart of that dragon. Thank you so much for saying that. Now, the last questions of the episode, and I hope you
Okay.
will have fun with this one.
All right. All right. I'm ready.
Talking about fantasy,
Mm.
imagining if Association Forum were a fictional character,
Hmm.
who would it be and why?
That's a fun one. I could go all over the place. I'm going to say right now, we are the Justice League of America. We're a whole group of characters. That, and shout out to one of my award recipients, said that his team was that, but I think this whole organization is that. The Justice League of America was a group of wonderful superhero weirdos that came together from all different walks of life and powers for one collective good. And that's what I feel in this community. They've been so accepting of me and my wild East Coast European, because I went to school in Europe, ideas of a scientist and whatever. I'm also a contrarian. So most people don't believe that. I am an absolute dystopian future. That ain't gonna work. Contrarian. Okay, that's me. And they've accepted that. And then every other day I meet somebody that just blows my mind. So that's what I would say. And then I was also going to say, a little bit, I don't know, like Pinky in the Brain sometimes too. So, we could be that too, a lot of brain and energy, but then also goofy funness that keeps us going forward. But I'm going to go with the Justice League.
Okay, so follow-up questions on that. As the CEO of Justice League of America, how will you ensure that the organizations will become the hero of its own story?
One good thing is that we need to have a collective soul vision. But what that looks like in real life manifests in your own superhero strength. So it all the way goes back to what I said earlier and what we talked about that acceptance. I accept that as long as we got the base, you understand these 8 words of the vision, not a whole paragraph. Ain't nobody going to understand that. Nobody understands that. But 8 words, boom, 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 we all on it. How you represent that, go off and do it. That, I think, for me, is where we all win. Because then everybody gets to activate however they show up, but we collectively are focused on whatever the future thing is, whatever the survival thing is. And right now, we're in a fight as an industry, not against each other, as an industry, because others are encroaching on that. Academia is coming in. You have for-profits like Coursera and LinkedIn and all of these other ones, ResearchGate, right? They're coming into what we do. Advocacy is in a different challenge now in the US and globally. And globally, fundraising is under really constraints where it's going to be only collective pools of money that can drive their own agenda, right? And if members don't feel like they need to join anything, where do we go from here? So that's where I think for us, collective vision, but then let it be however it's going to be. Because I think then we get some new ideas, some new energy, and then we survive in the future.
I like your focus on the collective vision. What I'm hearing underneath that collective vision is the acceptance and openness to diversity and inclusions. And that's where we start having new ideas,
Mm-hmm.
when we start opening our access to new market reach and so on. So I really like that focus.
Thank you. It's a must. It's a must. We're not talking about the right things, and that's why we keep getting skipped over for things. Our industry should have owned big data. We've got hundreds of years of collective data in our databases, and yet most executives don't even know that the database is a thing. Right. So I think for us, this is important, and that's going to mean a lot of us are wrong. A lot of us today that are thought leaders don't know what the hell the future is going to be. And so we're going to be wrong, and we don't like that. And so it's hard and it's uncomfortable.
Thank you for shedding the light on this for us. This is the end of the episode. Thank you again for your time and sharing your stories.
Absolutely. My name is Artesha Moore, and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity, the CEO edition. And out of all of these things, CEO edition or not, this is an interesting, amazing podcast because you let us all be who we are. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for bringing your voice in, and thank you all for listening.